We wanted to ask you about a few individuals. We do want to ask you about Bruno. He's under a lot of scrutiny right now as Manchester United captain. You oversaw Harry Maguire as captain. We want to ask you about Marcus Rashford, but we're going to start at Jadon Sancho. He's obviously on loan at Chelsea at the minute. We chased him for a long time. We know we didn't want to pay the money to Dortmund in the first summer, waiting for the next summer, big expectation. You've worked with him. Benny McCarthy has had his say in recent weeks about some of the reasons why it maybe didn't work out for him at Manchester United and may not in the future. What's your take on when you worked with Jadon, and do you think he deserves to stay at the club? Do you think he can have a future at the club, or is it best that he goes in a different direction and both part ways?
Jadon at the time, when Jadon was available at the time and it was big money, it started at less money but ended up big money. But Jadon at that moment in time was probably one of the best players playing in that position in Europe. He really was excelling. So he was definitely on the horizon for the possibility of Jadon joining Man United. That was done, the deal was done. Jadon was brought in, but with limited experience in the Premier League, believe it or not. He left very, very early from Man City, went abroad, and then obviously played his football elsewhere, but very, very unknown in the Premier League and how he would handle that. We had no issues with Jadon whatsoever. No issues at all. The only thing was to get him out there on the training ground, and get out of him exactly what we thought his qualities were. That didn't happen for some reason or other. It had bits of moments, but ultimately it didn't progress in a way it probably should have. But from Jadon's point of view, he's probably been struck down as well, like a few other players. And you mentioned Marcus Rashford there, where different managers have been at Manchester United over a period of time, and he probably was a little bit left unsure as to where he stood. This is hypothetical because I don't know what's actually gone on there. But ultimately, they've made the choice. They've sent him out on loan. He's been out on loan. He came back, then they put him back out again. Who knows? It's up to Jadon now how he sees and what he feels, and also how the football club determine whether he's progressing, whether he's good enough to come back. That's up to the new structure at Manchester United to decide over a period of time.
One player, I think it's fair to say, divides opinion, maybe even amongst United fans, certainly for neutral observers, is Bruno Fernandes, somebody else that you work with.
Yeah.
What credentials does he have for that captain's armband? And in some ways, do you think it weighs him down a bit, the burden of skippering this team?
I don't know, they say that in other sports, don't they? Sometimes in cricket and rugby, that you're a very good player, but once you take over different responsibilities, it suddenly fades. It's happened in international cricket, international rugby. But ultimately, Bruno has served the club really, really well. He came into the club where, he was probably an improvement on what was already there. Definitely improvement. The crowd took to him, the supporters took to him really, really quickly, and he produced. And he's been consistently producing that. He's just going through probably a moment now where he needs a little bit of help himself. He can't always give help to other people. He probably needs a little bit of help himself. And I think also taking into consideration the games he's played, he's been non-stop now for, I don't know how many years, 3-4 years. I don't know how long it is, both internationally and at club level. And there are times when players are a little bit off it, and he's set himself a high standard of delivery, and it's just not working out for him now. But I'm sure he'll be the first one to be thinking about how he can improve personally, but also as a captain, he'll be thinking how he can improve the team, the group. He never shies away from his responsibility, but right now he's just another player in that group of players that is not finding the true potential.
Mark, I really want to speak to you about Marcus Rashford. Now, of course, he enjoyed his most successful season under Erik ten Hag's first year with 30 goals, but it's safe to say under yourself and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he was a very vital part of that forward line. What do you think the issue is with Rashford? Do you think it's just a consistency thing where he does need to build up the confidence, or where do you think it doesn't quite go right with him at times in the season and throughout his career, I think it's fair to say as well?
Marcus is a bit of a conundrum at times. Everything Marcus has, he's worked at to get to where he is right now. I mean, he progressed really, really well You know, he was coached and sort of, I wouldn't say manipulated, but certainly coached in a way that brought out all his strengths in the academy setup. Then he gets his debut and he hits the ground running. You know, and I think over a period of time, again, he's been exposed to a lot of different things, a lot of different, could you call it philosophies? I don't know, but certainly different tactical elements. But ultimately, Marcus has to produce now. We tend to think Marcus is a young kid, and he's not anymore. He's experienced, playing for his country, playing for Manchester United. He has to find a level of consistency that exploits his strengths. Now, is that something that he can do and work at, or is that something that's alien to him? I don't know. I've never had that conversation with him over the past few years. But certainly, you know, is he happy? I don't know. You know, I've read things and heard things, you know, what his body language is like. Body language is, yes, good if you can get it, but it's not everything. It's how you produce your qualities on the football field. You know, you can be the saddest man in the world if you want, but if you're scoring goals and you're playing well, so be it. That's the nature of the beast. But Marcus just needs to find some consistency. What has been interesting is he actually probably has started to show, again, goal-scoring opportunities and a quality. And yet, when that comes, if you're a striker or a forward, as we say, the best thing ever is to keep playing. Keep playing. Keep doing it. You know, there's no point in keep doing it, practicing on the training ground, scoring goals when there's a game every 3 days there for you to put the ball in the back of the net. So I'm sure he would want that opportunity all the time. With that, he has to produce, you know. He has to be there to do it. And he's going through a spell, definitely going through a spell, but he's not the only one. So to single one player out, you know, or three players out that we just talked about, is pretty sort of damning in a way, but the team has to do better. The team has to do better.
Yep. Just quickly, one final question on Rashford there. You said obviously he needs to play to his strengths, if you like. He is a few years older than when you worked with him. If you had him now, what would you do to exploit them strengths of his?
Listen, he can run like the wind. You know, he can run like the wind. He can accept the ball in certain situations. He can shoot. He can shoot. I don't think he's got sort of a quality of a sort of a poacher or anything like that. But he can run like the wind. He's got power in his shooting. He just needs to get in front of goal. And the more times he can do that and hit the target, hit the fishnet, whatever you want to call it, then confidence grows. And I think he can practice those things. He has to improve, but all players have to improve. But he can do that. But I'm a big believer in strengths. You know, you get to the level of Manchester United and you get to the level of all the other top teams, strengths are what are important, not weaknesses. Why work on your weaknesses when you're 27, 28 years old, when you've got strengths in abundance? So it's that skill, that level of intensity of training, and bring your strengths to the table all the time for me.